I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone, and with that, we'll move into roll call.
Councilmember Deutsch,
Here.
Councilmember Keisler,
Here.
Councilmember Bryan, Councilwoman Lucchese, and Mayor Clarno.
Here. All right, with that, we have two special presentations and announcements tonight. The first one is a proclamation against child abuse.
I should know. I should know how to use a mic.
Yeah.
All people.
Look at that. We found a new job for Rich.
Thank you so much. My name's Allison and I'm here representing First Five Siskiyou. And I just wanted to have the city of Dunsmuir adopt the proclamation against the child abuse. And we went in on this proclamation with the Siskiyou County Domestic Violence and Crisis Center. And this year we have these flags that we're putting up all over town. And I did get permission to put them up at the city park. But I haven't figured out quite how to put it up yet. I just went there and looked at it. So anyway, we're putting these all over the county with some banners, and we're going to Tule Lake and Doris and Happy Camp, and so this is the month. And so I'm just going to read this proclamation to you. Whereas to become healthy adults, all children deserve to live in safe, stable, and nurturing homes and communities. Whereas children are vital to Siskiyou County's prosperity and future success. Whereas the people of Siskiyou County believe in the celebration of life, inclusion, and hope through our children, and deplore and condemn acts of violence committed upon the children of our communities. Whereas the lives of children who have been hurt or lost to child abuse are honored by studying their stories in order to prevent future abuse and protect the innocence, health, and lives of all of our county's children. Whereas child abuse, neglect, and sexual assault prevention is a community responsibility affecting both the current and future generations. April is also Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Whereas research has shown the enormous impact that positive parenting practices have on child's social, emotional, and intellectual development and future success. Whereas communities that understand the importance of prevention and support for the well-being of citizens thrive and prosper. Whereas effective child abuse and sexual assault prevention succeed because of partnerships among citizens and all our sectors of the county. And that includes all of us, all the cities, all the nonprofits, all the Rotary, I'm sure would be quite behind this. Maybe they would help me in hanging some flags. So, whereas April is the month to focus public attention on the needs of all children and prevent of sexual assault, whereas with leadership, dedication, and encouragement, there is evidence that we can be successful in preventing child abuse and sexual violence in Siskiyou County. Therefore, we hereby proclaim April as Child Abuse Prevention and Sexual Assault Awareness Month, as well as April 6th through the 12th, 2024, as Week of the Young Child. We call upon all citizens, community agencies, faith groups, medical facilities, elected leaders, and businesses to increase their participation in efforts to support families, thereby preventing child abuse and strengthening families in the communities in which we live. And I just want to give a shout out to the Dunsmuir Resource Center. They put on parenting classes, and they've been doing an amazing job with high attendance with the many classes that are going on there now. And that includes the play groups also. So anyway, that's what I got to say, and I'm going to move on, but thank you for joining me in this very important effort for April.
Mr. Mayor, Allison, would you be my guest Wednesday at 7 o'clock at the Rotary meeting at the elementary school? Make a presentation.
Sure.
Okay, we'd love to. Yeah, I'd like to have one of those flags. I got kind of a choice spot on the I-5 freeway. I'd love to hang that right there in my backyard. Thank you. Good job.
All right. With that, we will move on to item number B, which is a special, and once again, thank you very much. A special presentation by Plan West Partners of the status of the 2023 through 2031 housing element update and next steps.
Hello, good evening. Just a quick sound check. Hopefully, guys, everyone can hear me.
Michelle.
Hi. Can you guys hear me okay? Can
All
you,
right, we're muted all the
Yeah, I'm
time.
not using mine anymore. No, it's okay.
Oh, it's a better computer, that one over there.
all right, just a quick sound check. You guys can hear me in the room, okay?
We can't hear you, Michelle. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Give us 1 sec.
All right.
Is the speaker on, Blake?
I mean, on her.
That's a Samsung.
No, USB audio device.
Okay, one second, right there. Okay.
Okay, now try to spell.
Test, test.
Yay.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna, just a brief overview, next steps. And I'm gonna share my screen.
Keep it.
I got a timer on to watch my time. I know it's a limited amount of time. Don't want to monopolize the agenda for sure. So hopefully everybody can see my screen here. City Council, thank you for having us and allowing us to attend virtually. Appreciate that. Next slide. So hopefully you're seeing the timeline. This is just a brief high level, just where we've been. The house started in October of 2022, and here we are fast forward on nearly April of 2024. Last fall, the Planning Commission and City Council considered the draft housing element, and on December 6th, the draft housing element was submitted to HCD for review following a 10-day mandatory wait period. There was a public workshop held on December 18th, and that we received public input on the housing element. And so some of the topics that were covered at the December 18th workshop were accessory dwelling units, missing middle housing and zoning, adaptive reuse, establishment of a housing trust fund, short-term rentals and vacation units, density bonus and inclusionary housing, and veterans housing. So this is kind of looking back what's happened and things we talked about. So this slide and the next one indicate the sections of the housing element and the nature of revisions that are needed in order to address HCD's comments. The city did receive HCD's comment letter on March 4th. Dunsmuir's comments were fairly similar to those received by other Siskiyou County cities. So basically, very high level overview of the feedback that the city received. So elaborating further on public outreach, updating the programs as needed for the analysis, more detail on the housing element inventory, the opportunity sites related to infrastructure, estimated affordability, and some review of non-environmental constraints like the shapes of lots, if there's any easements that are known that could be overly burdensome or constrain development. Appendices A and B, HCD is looking for further analysis on land use controls, local permitting procedures, the housing needs of extremely low income households, the available resources in the community and the region, and identify gaps that are present and develop programs to help address those gaps. And then Appendix A, specifically for fair housing, more emphasis and more information on that's local knowledge, whether there's concentrations of substandard housing in specific neighborhoods and community amenities, all the parks are only in one neighborhood, and then to focus on what are called place-based strategies to address fair housing issues that may be present in the community. And so the upcoming schedule, what's coming up next is a week from today, is a public meeting. And at this meeting next week, we're going to, just going to stop my clock here. We're going to share information and receive public feedback on proposed revisions to the city's draft housing element, in particular, the programs. That's going to be the main focus. The proposed revisions to the programs will be posted by next Tuesday. This will be followed by a planning commission public hearing. And prior to that, so between the just after March 28th, we will post the draft revised housing element for the public, March 29th or March 30th. It may be posted first on Siskiyou Housing, the Dunsmuir page, and we'll make sure the city has links to those, but there'll definitely be copies available at the city as well. So April 10th, Planning Commission hearing, April 18th, City Council public hearing, and then submitting the draft April 26th. And this is the city's working towards a deadline of April 30th to submit an adopted housing element to the state. And that's to fulfill the city's SB2 funding commitment and continue to demonstrate the city's commitment to have a compliant housing element. That's kicks off a 60-day review, and it's not unusual for further revisions to be needed as a result of that. And then these are a couple slides or flyers we put together for the city that should be posted, just announcing that, and those could be available to share in the community posts on social media. And we've been working with the city to get that word out for next week's workshop. So that's all I have. Just give update, and that's about it. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and if I can find the right button. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I know we have one or two quick questions here.
Yeah, thank you. I guess just there's a lot of information there, but in the big picture, I'm trying to go back, and we looked at it before and realized it wasn't up to speed. And then we decided to gather more information and put together more. Could you, in a short span, not getting deep, but just in general, explain the progress we've made since we last looked at this? How would you characterize it?
So we had the public workshop. We've done, Plan West has done interviews with Great Northern representatives. We've been further consulting with city staff on the local housing information. We've also talked to Pat Valea. He's the executive director of Siskiyou Habitat for Humanity. And we've had meetings with HCD for Dunsmuir's housing element, along with for the others, and to get guidance on how we can best put together an AFFH program action plan, which is part of the city's programs that will be meaningful yet not overwhelm a city that because that fits the resources that are available, but also make it, attractive for grants and whatnot, but to keep it moving forward.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. And with that, we will move on to item number 4, public comment. This is time for members of the public to address the city council. Anyone who wishes to make a statement may approach the podium in person or raise their hand on Zoom. We will do members of the public who are present in person first, followed by those on Zoom. Everyone is allocated 3 minutes to discuss any item of city business, preferably each item under new business and old business will have their own time for public comment. So if you do have comment on those 2 items, if you could save it for that time. And when you start out, if you could please say your name and address for the record, it would be greatly appreciated. With that, whoever would like to speak may come up to the podium.
Hi, good evening. This is Debbie Spagnolo. I've lived at 4120 East Street for about 36 years. And last time you guys adjourned the meeting before I even got to raise my hand, and I want to speak. So do I get 6 minutes today? Anyways, I wanted to address a few things that I gave Michael at the end of the meeting about the car, the towing and all that. I just want you to please give me a little respect and clearly listen to what I have to just say, and I'm gonna try and make it really fast and very understandable. I stood before you and asked why I wasn't on the agenda. I made 7 packets. And for the designated city people, distributed them in regards to my urgent issue that needed and still does. Oh, I talk really loud. Need action to be taken, and I didn't get a response. Tonight, I asked the same. Why am I not on the agenda? That having been said, I've taken the following measured. I filled out a complaint form for the grand jury to be filed on Monday, the 25th. I didn't finish it last week. And the Attorney General is going to get a copy of the complaint. I've also been researching the laws regards to towing vehicles off private property. And measures take, and when Dave, the councilman, asked a couple weeks ago with the Sheriff LaRue to obtain the law in regards to the towing, I found that and I gave that a copy to Michael. And the law states a vehicle is not to be towed more than 10 miles. If for some reason it does, the police have to give a written consent. And I gave a copy of that, and it's not up to the dog catcher, I mean, Mark, whatever his name is. Also, retrieving personal property, the owner of the towed vehicle has the right to go where the vehicle is towed and get the personal property. I gave that a copy to Michael as well. The towing yard has to notify the owner of the vehicle where it is and the cost, etc. I believe I gave you that, but I'm not sure. I gave you lots, but I think I gave you that one too. Okay. What I've also done is I went through and went through abatement and procedures on the internet and for, you know, the steps and stuff. In my abatement, it states that Mr. Allen went through the procedures. No, he didn't. He was supposed to come and make an appointment to me and, you know, investigator, what do you call it? My house, my property to see, and so he could declare whatever he wanted to. I only got 2 letters last year. One was in February. I asked for a meeting, never heard from anybody. I put that in my packet. And then in October, I got a bill for $100 for not paying, not doing something about the ordinance. That was it. And then in January, I get an abatement.
30 seconds.
Okay. Okay, I already said that. And I think there's, and I guess just since I only have 30 seconds, I don't understand why the city manager praises Mark when last year on May 10th, the neighbor's dog that was not on a leash attacked my dog. To this day, that man has never come to my house and he says he's doing his job. I don't think so.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
My name is Peter Arth. I live at 5859 Sacramento Avenue. Mr. Mayor, I would like to address item 12 on this agenda, which is future agenda items. And I apologize that I didn't stay to the end of the last meeting to hear Councilmember Deutsch advocate for doing something around protecting our historic district. But we now have bullet on historic commission reformation and or review, and item number 11, plan for special historic district. To me, these are heavily overlapping. Maybe they're the same item, I don't know. But what I would ask of you in the next 30 days is to convene a meeting to deal with these 2 items and actually develop an action item for the city council's consideration. And the meeting would involve yourself, Mr. Mayor, the vice mayor, the two designated historic district delegates. I'll bet half of you can't even name who the two designated historic delegates are on the planning commission, but they are severely underused and have no power whatsoever. Most importantly, I would include the town historian, Ron McLeod. And most importantly, I would include the Cosmont consultants, because if you look at the Cosmont report, strategy 1 is entirely a loving hug to the 2 agenda items. That is, if we are going to protect and revitalize our historic district, their strategy embraces either a business improvement district or a similar district. Because, as we've heard over and over, the city doesn't have the staff, the city doesn't have the budget, the city doesn't have the bandwidth. And so therefore, these items just stay on the future agenda, perhaps to never be addressed. I think it's time to take action. I think it's time for the leadership of the city to address the fact that you can't even get the 4 blown out windows in the historic Weed Hotel or Dunsmuir Hotel fixed. And Ron McLeod will be very helpful as one bookend. The Cosmont consultants will be very helpful. It's all there, 20 pages worth in the report that you just got economic development grants to do. So I think 30 days would be more than enough time to prepare an action item to put on the agenda for the city council. If you want to do the unanimously agreed upon 5-member oversight committee as a beginning, it's a fine beginning. If that morphs into a historic district,
30 seconds.
there's no shortage of leadership as businesses continue to come into the historic district. It is in their economic interests as well as cities to do something and to move. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else who would like to make public comment this evening? Seeing no one, I will close public comment. Move on to council and staff comment, starting with Dr. Ortiz.
Thank you, Mayor. For the month of February, the Siskiyou County Sheriff's Office provided 523 hours of service. We had 154 calls for service / radio, or excuse me, self-initiated activity. We took 13 cases, 11 alarm calls. That I think we have a new business owner near the north end of town. There were some kinks to be worked out with his security system. I think that's come around. 5 disturbing the peace incidents, 32 school checks, 21 traffic stops, 3 welfare checks. The stats are consistent with last year's. We upped our school checks by 12. The disturbing the pieces are down by, last year we had 14, whereas this year we had 5. Overall, it was a fairly slow month. There were no notable cases. I can't explain it. I guess everybody was behaving in February, which is a great thing.
It's Valentine month, it's love.
I'm guessing that must be the case, Councilman Keisler. The deputies were active and busy. Just not much happened, so that's a good thing.
All right,
Thank you, sir.
Bruce,
We got the city manager
I was just gonna finish with that. Oh, if anything came up,
and it's Dave, right? It's the inner guys now, isn't it? It's the inner guys now. I got it first last time, right?
yeah, well,
Anyway, whatever.
All right. So just recently, part of the transition of the maintenance and stuff for Park and Rec, we met with the Garden Club, met with the high school. We also have a scheduled meeting with Cape Springs as their adjoining property.
And so we're kind of working through some of that. The city did receive dogwood trees that were paid for by Centennial, the contractor for Amtrak.
Oh.
And we do have those on site, and so we'll be planting those over the next couple of weeks in various locations throughout on city property. And then the city hall door is scheduled for shipment next week, so that. That's all I got.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a reminder that we're moving towards Building Dunsmuir's Future event, a placemaking event, which will be taking place on April 20th from 9:30 to 2:30. The idea there is to start pulling together the community to really get the new folks, the old folks, everybody looking back at their history. What are the values that they want to bring forward? Then a moment to kind of look at the future. What kind of a community do we want? This is not based on businesses per se or any of that. It's based on what a kind of a community we want, what values, and then looking at the assets we have. That'll all be before a catered lunch, and then in the afternoon, we will look at coming up with 3 or 4 big ideas, things that the community can do, not city council, but the community can come together to do projects and plan for that. So that's what that event is all about. And there will be a lot more information coming, but I just want to start getting the word out on that. Also, again, we have the second annual volunteer fair is coming up on May 19th. That's a Sunday. It'll be from 1 to 4 right after church. Everyone can show up. Last year, we had 17 organizations, and I'm hearing that there's even more excitement this year. So we're the only one, as far as I can tell, council and our city and the whole county that actually does this, and other folks are getting jealous. But I think that the best part of that was when all the different organizations had a chance to meet each other and get to know each other and realize that we're all trying to make the community better. So that's what I have, and thank you.
Councilmember Casey will address that.
Thank you. I just very brief, just working through some code updates and just grant applications. The application grant planning grant has launched, and so working on preparing that application. And then there's also another grant that I sent to city staff and that I'm hoping to work on that can be used to hire a historic architect that would then work with the planning commission and the historic district kind of topic item to produce formal guidelines. So for the comments that we heard during the COSMOD presentation on needing, requesting pre-approved color schemes, things like that to make it easier on businesses. And so applying for a grant to potentially get that type of assistance so that we could have those guidelines and so to make it easier for people to maintain their buildings appropriately. Other than that, nothing else.
All right, Vice Mayor Brian.
I've been busy at work on various committees I'm on, but nothing to share at this time.
All right. And for myself tonight, I would just like to encourage any member of the public who can to come next week for the housing element meeting and give input.
Got Dave.
All right.
Went up and stepped out now.
Councilmember Hester.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, couple things. We got the Easter egg hunt going on Saturday. And if you, it's Saturday, this is Thursday. And there's still time. There's still time to make a contribution to the resource center. They're looking for candy, they're looking for the plastic eggs, and they're looking for bicycles. So get a hold of Stephen Bryant tomorrow, 9:30. He'll be here in the morning at the resource center if you would like to contribute. Then it would be appreciated. The Rotary Golf Tournament is coming up on April 27th. For $50, you can donate $50. We make you a T sign. The T sign goes all over the golf course when they're playing golf. And I gotta tell you, this is probably next to the Brew Fest. This is one of the biggest events. These golfing people are just kind of crazy. So they love this stuff, hit a little ball all the way over there in a little hole. They win prizes, there's raffles. They all have fun doing it. But the neat thing about it is for that $50 and for all the money that goes into it, every dollar goes to our backpack program at our elementary school. In case you don't know what that is, we send our kids home Friday with a backpack full of food that they can cook for themselves and not come to school starving Monday morning. It's sad, but it's true. That's why I'm behind this program 1,000%. So let's say that you don't have a reason. You could donate $50 in memory of your mom, your dad, your dog, just because, and we'll make you a sign. And it's all about supporting the kids. So I encourage everybody, check out the Rotary page, look at the golf tournament. You can get a hold of me, Bruce, anybody that's in the Rotary. We get your flyer, we get you hooked up. And if you want to play golf, Mr. Arthur, you and your friends, you guys have been pretty good in the past. I think they even won one year. So you can play golf or you can just donate, but whatever it is, I encourage everybody to come out and have fun or support the backpack program. Another thing. A lot of us worked in, or supported a movie that was made right here in town. And it's shown Friday night at the theater. Times at 5:15 is the first movie, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's not showing for a long time. It's a few days, I think, but if you want to see the people in, hypothetically, Jack Trout gets shot in the head. I gotta go watch the movie. So go watch the movie Friday at Mount Shasta Theater. Unfortunately, it ain't showing at ours. That'd be like icing on the cake, but it's at Mount Shasta Theater Friday. I encourage everybody to go see it. And looking forward to summertime. We got a lot of Railroad Days, Brew Fest. We got a lot of neat things happening. So stay tuned.
All right, thank you. And with that, we will move on to committee reports. I know Finance Committee met. Were there any other committees that met?
The municipal ad hoc committee met last week and outlined the first couple of ordinances that need to be looked at and revised, and a lot of it is related to code enforcement. So we worked on those, outlined the different sections, and so the next step is to prepare an administrative draft for the city staff to take a look at, as well as a couple of other case study options for them. A lot of it has to do with definitions, conflicting codes, and how to better define those. Vehicles, storage of vehicles, and animals are the ones that we're focusing on first.
Yeah, there was a lot.
Yeah, we ended up having
We've needed this committee for a while.
Yeah, we had to basically kind of just focus on whatever we could fit into an hour-long meeting, and then take that list and just start small. There's quite a bit that needs to be done, and so that'll be the next steps of the committee, is to prepare those drafts for staff to take a look at. From there, after the admin drafts are prepared, they will then be released to whichever appropriate public body. So for example, if it is planning and zoning related, they will go to the planning commission for the appropriate hearings and consideration. And if they are more appropriate for city council direct input, they'll come in. But at this point, we're just kind of working through identifying those and updating the admin drafts.
And then Finance Committee?
Yeah, Finance Committee met, as did part of the Law Enforcement Committee. For Finance Committee, we reviewed our year-to-date budget. No pressing issues, obviously. We're excited to see TOT really outperforming our expectations. So it's something to be aware of as we look at things in the future. It's becoming a real staple of our ability to fund this government. It was certainly touched upon that our law enforcement costs have been lucky enough to stay the same for 5 years. We see a lot of challenges coming in the future, but nothing dire. We're eager to hear from the Solid Waste Committee as soon as there's any movement there. I know that we're working with consultants on that. We did have some interesting ideas that kind of came from it. Finance Committee would like to look into where to charge for parking at Hedge Creek, maybe on a voluntary basis at first, but set up some sort of capacity to capture, now that we've seen the data, that there's over 50,000 people a year that have gone to Hedge Creek in the last year, that we should, use that as a driver for our economics, and or just it's a good place to put up stuff for people that are outside of the area who are coming into our town to get information. We also discussed the need for moss spray trail for our economics. We had some good kind of, 1,000-foot discussion about Dunsmuir's economy.
1,000-foot discussion.
Yeah, looking at it from above, up on the
Okay.
top of the ridge, looking down, probably about 3,000 feet actually. But then the other item on the agenda was the finance committee's take on the parks budget, which was somewhat difficult since we didn't have detailed parks budget. The committee had a consensus that, this was an exciting opportunity for the town and could end up being a good thing, but that we feel very strongly that it's kind of flying blind until we have some better data on what's involved. And they encouraged council to not make any permanent decisions until we get a chance for full financial review of the impact of what those decisions might be. I mean, it was communicated that we authorized emergency help, but in that 60 days, process to come back with a permanent arrangement, finance committee didn't have the numbers to say it wasn't going to be a real danger to the town taking on some of those responsibilities. But all in all, good conversation. Do you have anything to add, Michael?
I do. One thing that just kind of tied the two items together as well is we directed Finance Director Michelson to break out in the budget our spending on parks, which I think is also something that just probably has been needed for a while. So that way we can analyze costs that are occurring at Hedge Creek Falls, which was always our responsibility. And now we can also associate any of the costs and revenues that are coming up with our increased involvement with parks and recreation in this town. So yeah, he's doing that, and so we can better analyze it.
And the reason we ended up talking about moss spray was actually through this idea of how do we fund parks and recreation? What is the economic value of parks and recreation? And we did touch slightly on the recreation part, that it would be nice to try to include programming. But then we were cut off by the chair as we kind of strayed a little bit from the economic and financial side of things. So even the finance committee every now and then talks about beauty. So I think that's all there for the sheriff's committee. We actually met earlier today, or those of us that could attend, and it was more of a hands-on assessment of the current facilities for the sheriff and how it works in operations, and talked about challenges and future needs. I thought it was excellent. I really commend our police chief, Sergeant Ortiz. He's doing a fantastic job. And we look forward to getting an update in the contract eventually. But as you see tonight later on, the near term seems to be continuing the relationship formally, but the conversations have developed in a positive direction.
All right, thank you very much.
Good girl. Thank you.
Not a girl, you gotta be careful.
All right, and with that, we'll move on to item number 8, item number 7, the approval of the minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve. The first is item number A, the joint meeting of 2/22/24 with the Dunsmuir Recreation and Parks Board.
I make a motion to approve the minutes for both A and B.
Second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded that we approve both A and B. And just for anyone, item number B is the meetings from the minutes from the 3/7/24 city council meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? None. Minutes approved. Moving on to item number 8, the consent agenda, which today is one item, the check register for 3/2 through 3/15 of 2024.
I make a motion to adopt consent agenda.
Second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Approved. There is no public hearing tonight. Means we're moving on to item number 10, old budget, and or old business, which means we have one item, the amendment to the sheriff's contract. Nothing.
All right. Mayor and council, so before you, we have basically an addendum to the current contract. It holds us at $416,000, increase in the total paid out through the contract of $2,080,000. And as mentioned before, we're currently in the discussion process for establishing a new contract for law enforcement services. So this extends it one more year, and which is basically, we're through 9 months already, I guess, of this current agreement.
Yeah, and for clarification, my understanding is we passed a resolution on this at the correct time because we wanted to rush it through. This is the county finally got around to
Getting us the
doing
actual document.
their
Yes,
language, their actual documents. It just formalizes the agreement we've been in.
that is correct.
Okay. All right, any questions from council or anything from the
No,
sheriff's department?
got a question.
Yes.
Justin,
Yes, sir.
what did you just say? You said something, and then you said 2 million.
Oh, so in the agreement, the way they summarize it,
Good
the
one,
2
Dave.
million is accumulation of the entire length of the agreement. So this is year 5 of a
Yeah, it
3-year
adds up over
agreement.
the years.
Are you happy with this, Mr. Finance dude?
I had the same thought when I saw the email originally.
man.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
We're good?
Yep.
Yeah,
If he said we're good.
yeah, all it's doing is taking each year and adding
Well,
it to
the
it.
people should realize
And
that
so-
the,
That's just kind of the total accumulation of the whole entire agreement.
I'd like to maybe just clarify.
Yeah, be safe.
So we are still paying the base rate of 416,000 plus an additional, say 25,000 for overtime stuff. Which is the rate we established 5 years ago when we started that first 3-year contract. That $2,080,080, that is the number if you total all 5 years.
All 5
So
years.
you should realize that is how expensive it is.
Okay.
Yeah, the past. part.
Yeah,
And it also includes overtime
yeah,
too, right?
I'm all right with this. It's the same. We're good. I appreciate you noticing that.
Dude, I never seen anybody squeeze a penny, but you do.
All right.
You say we're good.
We are good. Thank you.
And it is within the current budget.
Correct.
That we have. So.
Yeah.
Didn't that also,
We don't see a lot of $2 million amounts except for infrastructure.
wasn't that wasn't that 2 million also including overtime?
I believe. So.
Yeah, so that-
Who is does that 2 million include the overtime?
No, I don't.
I think it's just a straight contract.
Okay.
That's just adding up, I think the
416,000 times 5.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right,
5,280 hours, that's a mile. Okay, 5,280, that's a whole lot of money for a mile, but okay.
Well, we're very fortunate to have
Oh,
some
yeah,
good
we are.
partners in the sheriff, so.
And this dude rocks, you gotta admit, we are fortunate to have this guy right here.
all right, we'll have a few minutes for council discussion here in just a minute, but I'm gonna open up this item to public comment first. Same rules as before, 3 minutes. I will give a 30-second warning. Please restrict all comment to anything relating to the sheriff's contract. And with that, anyone who would like to approach the podium may do so. All right, seeing none, I will close public comment on this item. Since I'm also not seeing any raised hands on.
Nope.
All right,
Motion to amend the sheriff contract and authorize mayor and city manager to execute agreement. Or
Second.
all right. It has been moved and seconded. We should roll call this since it does have to do with money.
Councilmember Deutsch
Yes.
and Councilmember Keisler,
Yes.
Councilmember Bryan,
Yes.
Councilmember Lucchese.
Yes.
And Mayor Clarno.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, with that,
5 yes.
passes unanimously. And we'll move on to item number 11, new business. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yes. All 5 of us said yes.
Thanks, you get paid this last year. We know.
All right, we'll move on to item number 11, new business. We'll start with item number A, general plan and housing element annual progress report.
All right, Mayor and Council, before you, we have the 2023 general plan annual progress report and the 2023 housing element annual progress report. And we're looking to have you to receive and file and authorize the transmittal to the governor's office. And I have, I believe, Kelsey online to discuss it.
Good evening, council and mayor. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. So my name is Kelsey George. I am a contract planner with the city of Dunsmuir. I'm going to share my screen to show my presentation. So agenda item 11A is to adopt resolution 2024-02, which is to receive and file the 2023 general plan annual progress report and the 2023 housing element annual progress report, and to authorize the transmittal of these reports to the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, or OPR, and the California Department of Housing and Community Development, or HCD. So one point of clarification I want to make before we get too far into my presentation is that this item tonight does not adopt or amend any portion of the general plan or the housing element itself. These are just the state mandated annual progress reports, or APRs. So again, the purpose of the meeting is for the city council to receive these reports for both the housing element and the general plan. As of 2019, state law requires the city to submit a general plan APR along with the housing element APR. And the purpose of the APRs is just that. It's an annual progress report intended to report out on the progress made towards the goals identified in the city's general plan and housing elements every year. So the APRs are required to be submitted by OPR and HCD by April 1st each year. So following council's authorization, the APRs will be submitted. So starting off with the general plan APR, state law requires the city submit the APR per government code section 65400. The APR gets submitted to the legislative body, which is city council, for its review and acceptance. It's usually as a consent or discussion. I'm sorry?
Oh, that was just a thought. Continue.
Okay, so it's usually just a consent or a discussion item on a regular meeting agenda. So the APR reports on the 2023 calendar year. So everything from January 1st to December 31st, 2023. Some items that are included in the general plan APR are the housing element APR, the status of the general plan amendments, and general plan implementation.
Kelsey, real quick, your slide is still on the first slide.
Oh, I'm still on the first slide?
Yeah, you're not in presentation mode either. We could see your PowerPoint presentation, but it was just on the very first. So I was following along on my own slide that you sent me. I was like, oh, I wonder, most people might want to see the rest of this.
Yes, absolutely. So let's try.
So yeah, maybe when you started the presentation, it just didn't share the right screen.
Yeah, and so when I'm sharing my screen, I can't see
Right.
any of you. So am I in presentation mode right now?
No, you're not. You're still on the regular mode, but it's fine. We can see slide 3.
Okay, and it's titled General Plan APR?
You got it.
Okay, so moving on to slide 4. Thank you for pointing that out. So reporting on the general plan APR. So the status of the general plan, there are 7 state mandated elements and 1 optional. So Dunsmuir has a historic preservation element. Aside from the housing element, which is separate, the general plan was adopted in 2006 and last amended in 2023, which was last year. At the time of its adoption, the general plan followed the OPR guidelines at that time, but a more comprehensive update will be required to meet the current guidelines. The good news is the city has existing LEAP funds, which is local early action planning, in the amount of $65,000 to address some of the deficiencies. A list has been provided with the agenda packet with the general plan annual progress report, and most of the items relate to changes in state law. A lot has happened since 2006. So amendments to the safety element, the land use element, and the creation and adoption of an environmental justice element. So there's been a lot of ongoing activities that would implement the general plan, some continued efforts toward the active transportation plan on goals, visioning, and completion of a draft. The city has kicked off the Dunsmuir Downtown Revitalization Plan, which will facilitate the retail recruitment strategy and implementation of the downtown core. So a consultant has been engaged and sought public input. And then we just heard earlier this evening about the continued efforts on the 2023 through 2031 housing element update, which is your 6th cycle. Not to be redundant, but the draft has been submitted, some revisions have been made, and it's anticipated for certification this year. So the housing element APR is a standalone, but it's also part of the general plan APR. So it is layered in there. So just like the general plan APR, state law requires the city to submit a housing element APR, which gets submitted to the legislative body and then again to OPR and HCD. This APR is prepared in accordance with provisions set forth by HCD using standardized forms, and it reports out on housing development applications submitted, annual building activity for new construction, the RENA progress, which is the regional housing needs allocation, and housing element implementation. And just like the general plan, this is for the 2023 calendar year. So just to report out on some of the metrics in the housing element APR. So Dunsmuir's regional housing needs allocation, or RENA, is 2, 1 for extremely low income and 1 for low income. The housing development application submitted in 2023 was 1. That happens to fall in the above moderate income category. There was also 1 building permit issued for the same property. Oh, and I have some carryover language, but in the agenda packet, there is a list of goals and the metric for the responsibility and the timeline. So each goal is actively being engaged or completed or slated to be finished by the end of the cycle, which is 2031. So that concludes my recommendation, or that concludes my presentation, and my recommendation would be to adopt the resolution acknowledging that the reports were received and to authorize the transmittal of both the 2023 general plan annual progress report and the 2023 housing element progress report. So following the authorization, these reports will be submitted to OPR and HCD. And I'm available for any questions should there be any.
I do think that Juliana should be given the honor to make the motion when it comes to that.
This is just basically a house.
I know, but still, you're the planning dudette.
Thank you, Kelsey.
All right, thank you very much. All right, any questions? All right, I'm just gonna see if we have any questions for. All right, and with that, I will open this up to public comment on this item. Same rules as before, 3 minutes. I will give a 30-second warning. If you wish to speak in person on this item, please come up to the podium. If you wish to speak on Zoom, please raise your hand. We will do in-person comment first, followed by Zoom. With that, whoever would like to speak, please come up.
Mr. Mayor, council members, still Peter Arth. So I dutifully wrote down the series of opportunities for the public to speak on March the 28th, on April the 10th before the Planning Commission, on April the 18th before this body, and then the add-on of on 4/20. What a beautiful day. The session on building Dunsmuir's future. And as you know, I have a passion around taking some of the empty and abandoned buildings in downtown Dunsmuir and converting them to veteran housing. And I was pleased to see that it at least got one bullet point on the Plan West Partners special report. But it's my feeling that if I showed up for all 4 of these meetings and said, could we partner and create veteran housing in downtown Dunsmuir? You would listen and shake your heads and say, that's a great idea, but it wouldn't make any difference. When the city council submits its plan to the state of California, because, we don't want to raise expectations, we will commit to the state to do 4 or 5 units of housing for the entire jurisdiction of Dunsmuir, and that's all you're going to do. So it's not a good use of citizen time to sort of be listened to and ignored. And it doesn't give the community a sense of hope to participate in these events in good faith and see absolutely nothing come of it other than thank you very much for showing up and here's a slice of pizza. So if you could convince me or any member of the public that there's a reason for participating in local government that will actually move the dial to provide housing for every segment, low income, veteran, workers, you name it, then we will come and engage. But until you do that, I think you get the same 3 or 4 people and they will have done their civic duty. And a year from now, it'll look the same annual report, right on track.
30 seconds.
We haven't done anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item?
Just a quick question. This plan, this progress report for the housing element, can we read that? Can we come in the office and read it, or can we check it out like a library book, or do you have to online?
Right, I will address that once we get to the council comment.
Oh, okay, that's okay.
Cool. All right, any other public comment? Seeing none, I will close public comment on the item. And then I'll just start off by answering a question that was brought up during public comment. And that is the progress report is part of the agenda for this meeting. So the best way to view it is if you just go online, you can just download the agenda or go into City Hall and grab one for this meeting, and then you can read the entire progress report. And then when it comes time for the plan, that will be on that will be made available to the public at the at City Hall and on the website as well.
Is that why it said 72 pages? Oh, okay.
All right. And with that, is there any discussion on this item?
Juliana, take it.
Motion to adopt resolution 2024-02 to receive and file the 2023 general plan annual progress report and the 2023 housing element annual progress report, and authorize the transmittal of the reports to the Governor's Office of Planning and Research and the California Department of Housing and Community Development.
I'll second that motion.
All right, it has been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? None. Passes.
Thanks so much, Kelsey.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Go have some fun.
All right, with that, we will move on to item number B, collection systems project.
All right, Mayor and Council. So we recently had bid out our sewer collections project. The project was bid in with sealed bids, and Cox and Cox was the lowest qualified bidder. So the bid amount was for $8,006,915. This amount is outside of our actual allocation of $6,154,000. But this is a clean water SRF grant, and it has been in progress since 2016. And the Pace Engineering was in discussion with the actual project manager from CWSRF, and they are open to allowing more for construction funds. So they have asked and made a recommendation that the city council approve the bid as is, and we are going to go for funding. Additional funding outside of what we are already authorized due to the delay in construction because of the state's, unintentional slowdown, I guess you want to call it. And so this project was originally bid to start late this fall, but now there's about a 9-month delay on getting additional funding. So that'll put us into about December, and then construction would start next spring instead of fall. And so then we'll have basically, and that kind of was the intention going in. We kind of knew we were a little bit late to the game in getting the bids out in January, based on the contractors we had talked to going forward. And so their plates are a bit full, but the cost of everything is substantially higher than it was in 2016 when we started. And we've reduced the project significantly, but still trying to keep in scope with what our original plan was to reduce I&I. And so staff's recommendation is to approve it, and we will go after additional funding and then move forward with that. But if we're denied additional funding, I will come back with an update.
Any questions?
I have one brief one. How much additional funding?
It's about 2 million.
And what is the current allocation?
6,154,000.
And that's with further narrowing the project now, or it's already been narrowed in the past?
The $8 million was the narrowed version. Because we originally had planned on doing a large number of sewer laterals, which are the connections going out to the curb that connect in with the residences.
Mhm.
And we cut a lot of that stuff out and focused primarily on our own stuff.
Well, as long as we're asking the state for additional funding, we'll at least be in the conversation that we'd like. I guess it wasn't part of the bid, it wouldn't apply, but is there any possibility of getting additional funding for that?
I mean, we had to scope it down just to try and even make sure we can make the project happen at all. So
That makes sense.
we, based on the bid documents and how we had to rescope it, probably not.
In the interest of
Not in this project
in the
anyway.
interest of efficiency, I wonder if it would be possible to integrate a voluntary sewer lateral replacement if the main's being dug up anyway, the street's blocked.
If the resident wants to pay for it, you mean?
Well, if they want to pay for it, and if it's lined up, and if we can get a company that can do many, if it can be done efficiently, I think that might be a really valuable service we could offer our residents. I mean, granted, it would still cost money, but I could see a way for this to actually cut the costs by 25 to 50% if there were enough people interested. There had to be strict cutoff dates.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
in the beginning, weren't we replacing the laterals? That was on us?
Not the whole lateral, just the city's portion of the lateral.
And seems to me that ain't true. Seems to me there was a talk of borrowing equipment, or we had equipment and it did the laterals, and then something about McLeod even liked ours, but they wanted a trailer. They didn't want a truck. We have the equipment to replace laterals. I thought that we were doing now lateral replacements. Now I'm hearing that, well, you're gonna not do that because it's too much money. And now there's talk of the consumer paying to have their lateral replaced. Is that where we're going? From that to this?
So basically, the city manager explained that it's not necessarily making the private individual pay for the lateral. We're just not able to afford the lateral in this project. So if we did want to go for additional funds at another time and do that as a project, we could do that. I think what Councilmember Brian was stating was, excuse me, if there is a possibility to do a additional side project with this, that if there is a private property owner who'd like to do it at this time, to give them the ability to be in the, trench while they're doing it, and potentially looking at that. I was just gonna add to that conversation, if we do it with our contractors, it would be prevailing wage, which might not necessarily be cheaper than having a private individual go ahead and do it. So it's not saying that we're forcing people to do it as part of this project. It's just stating that it's not currently included because of the cost overall at this time. So we could go back and do another project if we so choose.
But even throughout this, all we're doing is the city side.
Correct.
And
Correct.
maybe some clarification on
Well-
the nature of ownership of laterals might be in order for us to approach it. Not that that's in the scope of tonight's discussion, but
Well, I think I can address your comment on that. So the city owns the lateral to the curb, correct? No,
no, to the hookup.
to the,
Customer owns the.
All the way to the main.
Penetration point of the city.
right. And so originally we were going to replace it out to the curb, so it was out of the street. So that way we didn't have to dig the street up again for them to replace those. And so we were gonna do that service, but because of the budget crunch, I would say, and their lack of being able to get us funding for almost, 7 years, then the prices have gone up significantly. We already had to reduce our own portion of the project. To the point where we went to do a portion of it, we planned on doing like 8,000 feet of lining or something like that, which basically puts a sleeve inside the pipe and then basically makes the pipe like new. And the pricing for that was when we started this planning process in 2016 was $40 a foot. Now it's over $200 a foot. So it is it's more cost effective for us to actually replace the pipe than it is to line it, which is completely blows my mind. Our pricing is way out of whack. And it's just due to the nature of all the money and the glut of the financing and all the stuff from the COVID era. Everybody has projects. We're managing 30 million in projects here alone at City of Dunsmuir, which is like totally way out of whack, right? That's not something we normally afford. And so we're just tiny little Dunsmuir, 1,780 people, but then like Wairika, I believe they're managing 250 million in projects. So there's a lot of money out there. And so it's causing all the prices to go out of whack. And so, we're trying to do the best we can for our citizens, and this is the most we can do just to get the project to even happen.
Yeah, and the reason I brought up, that's my understanding too. It's the owner, as far as I respect that with the project. I'm actually, when we get to further discussion, but for clarification, I have found it to be, and I have a fair amount of experience now with Dunsmuir laterals and a private owner wanting to replace them or looking into replacing them. And two things I find: one, if you need to replace the whole thing, the most expensive part is you have to dig through a curb in a city street. And as a result, I've seen repairs that have happened where it's cast iron on the private side, it's PVC on the city side, potentially where it connects if it's been repaired, but there's a stretch that's still terracotta underneath the sidewalk and the bulk of the street. And that's a failure point. And just because I've run into that on more than one occasion now, I would like us to anyway, that was just my clarification question, but we can get into a conversation more on it. I'd be curious to see if there's any solution we can bring to that middle section.
I think we can have the discussion. We have some time. And so that part of, the project's set, right? And it's in the funding stream. So we can have the discussion with the contractor once it's awarded and understand, what does that look like for a homeowner? Is there a reduced cost compared to actually having to do it if that's something they want to do at that time?
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions before we go to public comment on this item? All right, with that, I will open this item up to public comment. Same rules as general public comment. The other two public comments this evening, everyone will have, anyone who wishes to speak on this item will have 3 minutes. I will give a 30-second warning. We will do people in here present first, followed by Zoom. If you wish to speak on this item in person, come up to the podium. If you wish to speak on Zoom, raise your hand. And with that, I will open, and please say your name and address for the record. I will open up public comment for item number B, collection system project.
When I moved here 36 years ago, sewer laterals were just put in. So does that mean there's something wrong with mine? By saying,
Address that in, once we get there.
I'm,
It's the rules for the Brown Act, I'm sorry, but we'll try to address that once
yeah,
we get to our
we had to know
discussions.
something's wrong. I mean, I think I'm wrong with mine.
Well, I'll try to answer that question when we get to our discussion.
Okay.
All right, any other further public comment?
Mr. Mayor, we might want to reiterate to the people out there in TV land, how that they could go out, how did they raise their hand?
Yeah.
Just in case they don't know.
So for anyone on Zoom, down at the bottom under the reactions tab, you can raise your hand if you wish to make a public comment. And
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I wasn't quite sure what the protocol was here. I came, as a follow-up to addressing you guys during the February 1st meeting regarding our legal fee obligations that were threatened by the city, and so far we haven't heard any resolution as to what's going to happen with that.
so, Brad, I'm sorry to interrupt here, but this public comment is for this particular item, which is the sewer collection project. But if you stick around till after the meeting, I will be happy to have a good discussion with you on that particular.
Yeah, I don't
particular
see
piece.
how, I don't really get how your agenda works, but that's fine. I mean,
Yeah,
our previous conversation led me to believe that this was a appropriate time to address the council, so.
okay,
All right.
I'll clean everything when we're. All right, unless there's any other public comment on this item, I will close public comment. All right,
I can kind of address our comment. So the lateral component that we would look at is only within the scope of the area that we're doing the project. So we're not replacing 100% of the mains. We're replacing. All right. I'll let Dennis clarify that because it's kind of all over the place, but he could help.
The project is North Dunsmuir, Caldwell, Iskry, Holly, Lincoln, Prospect, and Leaves. Part of Leaves is in that project there. And also that's sewer main replacement along with sewer replacement to the property line. And then there's the Wells Avenue. So Wells Avenue redirect, that particular street will redirect the flow out to Dunsmuir Avenue. The part of chapter, Shasta View, Hemlock, Hart, all of that gets redirected down into Shasta Street, and then down from Ash Street to Children's Park or down in front of the brewery is getting a modification to both sides of the sewer line. And then Grover, Edith, Bernie are getting some lateral repair to the property line. Those streets were called out as very high ice and had groundwater coming in. And then there's some hands through, there's I think 13 manholes or 14 manholes there. They're old school. There was about 7,000 feet of sewer lining. Sewer lining was what we found with camera work. We have manholes that have clay pipe leaving the manholes, which I'm assuming were clay sewer mains, and they are actually plastic pipe out of stuff just outside of the sewer manholes, and vice versa. There's plastic out of the main that we thought was all plastic pipe, it ended up being clay. It was a 75 project. So sewer lining was to put all that up, bring it up. In the bid, there is some deductive items, so we can't get the funding from the state. Drop some of these items off to where we can still do the main function of the project.
Just a quick question. In the past, Kate has provided us with a really nice map for our projects. Could we get a map and put it online for people who just want to know ahead of any construction schedules, please?
Yeah, we can try to do that. Yes, we can definitely do that. But I was also gonna mention, if you guys remember those big maps that used to be up here.
Yeah.
From like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That's the project.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I remember we had a map and I know it'll help with some of the confusion, with where those projects are. But,
Yeah, but definitely when active construction is happening, we will definitely let everybody.
and,
Mr. Mayor,
Could you sorry,
go ahead. You were finishing. I'm sorry.
could you clarify, your request to council tonight?
All right, so tonight's request is to approve the bid as presented at the $8 million number. And then that will give us additional funding to cover the whole cost of the project. If in the event of the cost not being covered, then we have inductive items within the bid package that will allow us to reduce it within the number that we're authorized by the state.
And that was based off of a needs assessment.
It was, based on still providing within the original scope of what was presented in 2016 planning grant. And still trying to accomplish the same mission. So some
You
of the
can
deductive items,
clearly see the deductive items on the bid itself, on page 77 of the packet.
We don't have that.
it's not in the printed packet.
Well, if you had your full agenda packet, it would be on page 77 of that, which you've already read, of course.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, the question I have here is more of an answer to the question from the public is that unless somebody has told you you've got a problem with your laterals, I wouldn't worry about it. Is that correct?
That's not necessarily true.
No, I'm just saying what
Yeah.
the city is doing, but nobody has to go home tonight and freak out because they're.
No, Yeah, no.
That's what I'm
no,
saying.
Yeah, that's correct. We're not forcing anybody to do any additional work. It's stuff that we've identified.
Right.
Is a cost benefit to do it at the time of the project.
Yep.
But we're not forcing anybody to do any work that's going to cost them money.
That's what I wanted to
And-
clarify
and,
from the question.
You know, we have enough time because the project's not going to happen until spring. We can get some clarification on what some of those projections would be. And, you know, we can work through some of the details on that.
Good. Thanks.
Well, I motion to award it to Cox and authorize city manager to execute documents.
Could I friendly amend that to, also say pending additional funding from state or federal partners?
Okay, I'll second it as amended if you want to take the motion.
The motion.
I just want to point out, looking at that piece of paper, we're very lucky to get an $8 million bid, it looks like. Thanks.
That's okay.
Yeah, there's some 10 millions in there.
Unfortunately.
All right, it has been moved and seconded, and we will do this one as a roll call.
Councilwoman Lucchese. And Councilmember Bryan,
Aye.
Councilmember Keisler.
Aye.
Councilmember Deutsch,
Aye.
Mayor Clarno.
Aye. Motion passes. And with that, we will move on to item number C, Public Workshop Relocation Budget Amendment.
All right, Mayor and Council, as we've been going through this process, we're now coming to a completed package that we're gonna bring forward to the council here shortly. With some of the additional work that we had done prior, we're asking for an amendment of about 30,000. That'll bring us up to 205,000. That covers some additional PACE costs plus some of the stuff that we had taken care of on our own. And so we're just asking for a budget amendment to authorize an additional 30,000 for the public workshop relocation. And
How
hopefully
does the finance director and finance committee think about this?
Finance committee has not reviewed this particular request,
Okay.
but we're aware of the
Money
situation.
has to happen.
I guess for everyone's reference point, could we also get the projected deficit now with this budget amendment? Is it there? Can't see.
I didn't calculate that.
So it was going to be, oh no, we don't have that. Was it 178,000?
I mean, with all the other budget amendments, I don't know where we're at now. I can get that maybe real quickly, but we're probably at Yeah, 175,000
It was
deficit.
175, they want 30, which puts them at 205.
Yeah. No, that was the budget just for the building. Or is that the,
Well, our deficit was pretty close to the same.
it was-
I want to
yeah,
say
it was
like
about
one,
78?
yeah, 178 or 196 is a number that stuck in my head.
Yeah,
I
that,
don't remember.
no, that was next year's, this year's is higher.
Yeah, I thought this was, yours was like 230.
Well, for the good of the order,
So
if you can pull it up,
235?
like, what was the budgeted deficit?
I'd
can
have
just
to
add
go
30.
back and look
The
at it.
general fund deficit, well, yeah,
Yeah.
it was like 175.
For
And then,
23,
then
24?
yeah. And then this would, well, if all else being equal, this would then raise it by 30,000.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of other stuff going on, but could we look up easily what that deficit was?
Yeah. I'll say.
Any other questions, while Blake is looking that up?
Well, I guess I'm just following up on that. I guess the idea would be, how do we deal with the deficit? We have a certain amount in our backup fund, and what percentage are we taking it down to? And how's that all work?
So we had a pretty large fund balance going into this fiscal year. And so it was projected to do a, spend some money down to conduct some projects where, I mean, on top of the Public Works building, we're also, we budgeted 96,000 to do work on other buildings, including this one and the library. And so those were kind of planned as a part of that spend down. And actually our revenues are doing better than expected. So we're still kind of in that situation, which is not a bad thing.
Mhm.
So it'll allow us to continue to do some projects that we'll bring forward in a updated budget amendment for next fiscal year.
And obviously getting a building is not something that's a nice to have, it's a must to have, right?
Correct.
Well, and we are in the more painful stage where we're just spending out of pocket.
Yeah.
Soon we'll be looking at borrowing money to complete, likely.
226,000 deficit.
226,000.
So all else being equal, this would raise it by 30,000. 256,000.
Thank you, Blake.
Thank you.
All right. With no further questions, I will open this up to public comment. Same rules as every other item, 3 minutes, 30-second warning, state your name, and address at the beginning. Anyone who would like to speak in person can go first, and then anyone on Zoom can raise their hand. Seeing no one, I am going to close public comment on this item. All right, council discussion.
So I'm just a little concerned with the deficit and continued spending, so in addition to this item, could I just refer the matter to the finance committee to have that on your next agenda, to just kind of discuss the current state of our budget adjustments thus far for this fiscal year, and what the projected operating for the operational year is gonna look like. I know we can't really not do this, which is fine. But again, if we continue to look into other projects, we may need to back off on some of the other items that we're working on that are just gonna start to get times. So I'm happy approving the budget amendment for this because we need the shop. But I'm starting to get a little concerned about the budget.
I agree with that.
Noted, real quick, duly noted. Thank you for that comment. But I will say that we are looking at financing for this, so.
Yeah, and I think it's important to also look at it in context of our reserves, because if we're blessed to have reserves to get us through this, that's great. But we've all but one of us has been in a situation where we had zero reserves or close to it on this council. We don't want to get back there if we can help it. The other thing I think would be good for council to look at is we 4 years ago moved to a 2-year budget cycle. Maybe it was three years ago, like. And that was there's a lot of reasons for that. I don't think there's ever been a lot of clarity from council on how we intended to address my understanding of the yearly budget process and cycle. My understanding, I want clarification from council, is we still have a yearly budget process, and every year we do a new budget that goes out 2 years. So we still have that yearly part. Already in the last midpoint, we ended up in a bit of a transition mode, and we ended up relying upon that second year budget all the way through, making amendments as we did. But the idea is to always have that extra year if needed and that forward looking. Is it council's intention to do a full budget process each year? Even though we have the 2-year budget? Because this kind of fits into that. We're so close to when we'd be doing this anyway, on a much grander scale. And I know Blake's gonna calculate forward anyway, because that's what he does, but what was council's thought, because it relates to this topic?
Well, I'd like to do it every year just so we don't even cover our pants down, even though it's a 2-year thing.
Mhm.
At least we're staying on top of it.
Yeah, and it should be easy because we've got the next year already projected. We'll
Right now.
clean it up, do the next year. Does staff any thoughts on how they thought we were gonna approach that? I just,
Blake and I actually discussed it this morning. We're gonna start that process to kind of relook at what we have projected for next year and then bring that back to finance committee and then subsequently here. Because we know there's some amendments we need to make. As far as expenditures for this year, we've have some stuff that we've kind of slowed down a little bit on and just took a little more caution and haven't bought.
Yeah.
Not in hopes that the price goes down, but because we're aware that we have some other stuff that is outstanding.
Yeah.
And so we have, overall, we've had a number of projects that have been delayed outside of our control.
Mhm.
This sewer project is one. Obviously, it doesn't impact the general fund, but it does impact, our, how we operate our sewer and that kind of thing. And
Yeah,
it just,
definitely.
those delays alone are kind of helping our budget along because we projected to spend and then
Yeah.
the project doesn't happen and we're gonna have, some of that stuff's getting pushed off out of our control. So we plan on looking at that here in the next week or so.
yeah, and this is more just a matter of formality. Will we adopt a 2-year budget every year versus take a 2-year budget to its end cycle, do a new 2-year budget?
I don't think we're gonna go down all the way to the nuts and bolts of the 2-year.
Yeah, like
we
it'll
do
be a
at the-
lighter year.
But we're gonna do a lighter version. We're gonna take and review everything that we projected, a year ago going into the 2-year.
Mhm.
And then we'll do a kind of a realignment of what that will look like for the next year.
Would we project out another year at this point?
I don't think so.
Yeah, okay. But we will do a major amendment for the next year going into.
Revision, yeah.
Right.
But we gotta,
Update.
I'm good with that.
but we gotta make this happen right now, right?
I second the motion if there was one.
There wasn't that, so you want to leave us off?
Motion to
Aye.
amend budget line item 10-514-8250.01 to $205,000.
I'll second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded, and we'll do this as a roll call.
Councilmember Deutsch,
Aye.
Councilmember Keisler,
Aye.
Councilmember Brian,
Aye.
Councilmember Lucchese.
Aye.
Mayor Clarno.
Aye, motion passes. All right, and with that, we will move on to item number 12, future agenda items. I'm just gonna start off one thing that got dropped from here, that I want to make sure gets back on, given that we are approaching summer and summer will be here before we know it, is, the fireworks ordinance.
Yes.
I'd like to propose that we make that a permanent as we go through it this time.
Yeah, that was the intent, was to update the ordinance as opposed to passing a resolution.
Yeah.
So I apologize. I will
Thanks
add
for
to the-
catching that.
And then just for an update on a couple of items, I think we should be able to have the RFP for planning and RFP for third-party HR consultant at the next meeting. For consent, that's just to put the RFP out into the market, not spend any money. And then the library item, I'm still slowly working on to hopefully have that back to staff to present for council the first or second meeting in May.
Anything else?
No.
Well, I think we
Make
need
motion
to,
adjourn.
we also are bringing the Cosmont one back on the 4th as well, I believe. Isn't that what we talked about on the last meeting?
I'd actually prefer the second meeting in April.
18th?
I won't be
I'll look
here,
back
but-
at my notes. I thought there was a
Mhm.
couple people who weren't gonna be here at that one.
Well, I'm
Actually, no,
biased. I won't be here
will
the 4th.
No, I won't be here that day. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
All right, with that.
Got it.
Motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All right, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.